that he basically brings from the Tzemach Tzedek. It's called the Inyanu Shel Pesach Sheini. What's it all about? So he says over there, the Tzemach Tzedek says you have to first understand three prefaces before you can even grasp what it is. And the three prefaces are the difference between the first month and the second month of the year, Nissan and Iyar, in avodes Hashem. One, what is the difference between them? The difference between iskafia and ishapcha. Subjugation and transformation. Where do we see this? Coming out of Mitzrayim is basically running from evil, right? Sur meira. And that's the idea of iskafia, like basically just pushing the evil away. And the whole idea that we said before, ki barach ha'am, the people had to flee, right? Why did they have to flee if they were, they were being pushed out actually from Paro? The whole story we talked about in this mimer as well, because they were fleeing, so to speak, from the evil in themselves. It's like they were not transformed people, and therefore the only avoda they could do was not like transform the darkness in them, but just run away from it. That's the end of iskafia.
How do we get to Sormira Asay Tov? How do we get there? What was the first connection?
We have to understand three prefaces.
Oh.
And the first one is the difference between the first month and the second month in avodas Hashem.
Okay.
So Nissan in general represents hiskafia,
Okay.
and Iyar represents hishapcha, transformation.
Okay.
Why do we see transformation? Basically, the whole Indian of the Sfiras HaOmer is an Indian of transformation. Like you take the the day and you turn the whole day into a mitzvah. And of course, we're transforming our midos, right? We're taking each midah and we're like turning it into a godly midah. So the whole idea of basically, again, you can look at it as sur meira va'aseh tov, turn from evil and do good. That's month 1, month 2. Or as I've been saying, hiskafi and hishapcha. Right? Second preface is the difference between these two midos, these 2 months in spheros. It's Pesach Rishon, right, and Nissan represents the sphere of Malchus, right? Where do we see that? Because it says basically, Upasach Hashem el Pesach. Hashem jumped over the door, and the door represents the sphere of Malchus. It's like the doorway to the lower worlds, right? And in general, this I'm already bringing from outside the mimer, but the letter of the month is Hey, which represents Malchus. And okay, there's many things basically. I don't want to go into, especially since we're just summarizing here. But in general, Pesach, Nissan represents Malchus. Iyar represents Yesod, because basically there's a climb from below to above. So you're going from Malchus to Yesod. So this month is the sphere of Yesod is dominant. Again, the Rabbi doesn't say much about that, but if you want to say that the letter of this month is Vav, so if you're looking at the spheres, again, this is from outside the mimer. I don't want to mix in. Just this is how it makes sense to me. That Vav represents the Zah, right? The six midos, whereas Hey is Malchus is Malchus, right? Yud K Vav K. So the Vav is the 6 midos, right? And the primary one of the 6 midos, as it's known, is Yesod, because that's where it's the foundation of them all. Right? So this month is Yesod. So he says, now there's a connection between the two things we just said. The avoda of this month is iskafia, right? And the avoda of the month of Nisan is iskafia, and the sphira is malchus. The avoda of the month of Iyar is hishapcha, and the sphira is Yesod. So these things are totally connected to each other. Why? So he brings another mimer from Torah Or, the Alter Rebbe, where he explains the difference between Yosef and his brothers, right? And the whole idea is that they were both doing a certain type of avodas Hashem, which was indicated in the dream, where they were all, they were all gathering the sheaves, right? Hine anachnu ma'almim alumim. He had this dream, we were all in the field gathering sheaves. So he says, what's the ending of gathering sheaves? It has to do with the avoda of the birurim process, to refine the world. Why? Because basically the world, he says over in Torah Or, if you recall, we learned this mimer together also, maybe a couple times even. It's one of my favorite mimerim. And it talks about, how the whole story about how the river It was one river, and then it breaks into many rivers, 4 rivers, and then the 4 rivers break into more rivers. And this is basically a symbolism of the unity of God, which as it comes through the worlds, it starts to separate and scatter and separate and scatter, and basically plurality is sort of born from oneness. And this is the descent that takes place during the Hishtalshalus, that everything starts to get more and more separate from each other. Both in the realm of time, gets separated into like individual moments, and space, everything basically becomes like out of like a big klal, it becomes everything has its own private space. This is basically, the lowliness, as the lower you go into the world, the more separate things are, right? So gathering sheaves is a process of taking individual sheaves and putting them into bundles. So this is like fixing the problem of the world, right? It's basically taking the separateness and making unity out of it. And this was the avoda of the Shvatim, all of them, including Yosef. They were all gathering sheaves in the field. That was his dream, which means they were Jews involved in the process of uniting the world, right? Yeah. Now that being said, it says that their sheaves had to bow down to his sheaf, right? Why is that? Because a level of refining the world was at a completely unparalleled level to theirs. That's why they hated him. They didn't understand. He was like the Rebbe, and they were basically Hasidim, and they didn't like that relationship. They didn't understand what it was until basically they eventually did bow down to him, and it became clear that he was in fact the Rebbe, right? But in the meantime, what was the difference between the two types of avodas? That they only could do his skafia, and he could do his hapcha. They could only basically do a type of job where they could banish they could collect the separateness of the world, but they couldn't actually turn it into godliness. They couldn't transform it. In other words, pushing away the bad and sort of gathering the good in one place is the job of uniting the world, making a semblance of unity. But it doesn't mean that just because you use that process that you've turned the good into elokus. Right? You haven't transformed it into not being a world anymore. You just made it a refined world. But if you want to make it like God, you got to bring it to the Rebbe. It's like, look at the best analogy for this is like the shluchim. Right? They're out there, they're doing their work, but at the end of the day, they can only do so much. Listen, they talk to the guy, then you bring him to the Rebbe, and it's like he's in the front of like the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and he's like, okay, I see what you're saying, like I'm a changed man. Because there's a power that the Rebbe has that they don't have. So this is also connected to Malchus and Yesod, because it's known, over there it's known, and from there, of course, it's just known in the world, that Malchus is the place where the souls of the Shvatim come from. And Yesod is the place where Yosef comes from. And what's the difference? Because Malchus is the Sphira which is responsible for creating the world, below it, you with me?
Yes. No.
What were the two places that their souls come from? Shvatim and Yosef?
Shvatim come from Malchus.
Malchus, okay.
Which is again connected with Iyar, right? You're putting all the pieces. Nissan.
Yeah.
And Yesod is Yosef, represents Yesod, and it's like the Indian of Iyar in the avodes, right? And he's hapcha, right? So yeah, exactly. There's a few things. Let's just list them. You have Iyar, Yesod, he's hapcha, and now Yosef, right? And on the other hand, you have Nissan. Where did I start with? The Shvatim. Well, Nissan, the Shvatim. He's Skafia and Malchus, right? Those are on the other side. So what's the connection here is that Malchus is where the Shvatim's souls come from. That's where the root of their souls. They have a different soul root, which means they don't have as high of a soul root. Now what's the deal with having a soul root from Malchus? Is that Malchus is an aspect of divinity which creates the world and therefore certainly recognizes the existence of the world and is not beyond the world. Right? It's the aspect of God who's all about confining himself into boundaries. You with me? So therefore, if your soul comes from there, there's no way you can undo the boundaries of the world and turn the world into elokus. Because basically, it's part of your very nature to be part of the problem. How could you free yourself from prison, basically, right? Someone else has to free you from prison. So they can go around, and what it is it's the perfect world, right? Malchus is the source of the world, so it's before the world breaks. So they're able to do the job of putting all the sheaves together and like recreating the perfect world, but that doesn't mean that it's a world of godliness and nullified to godliness. They can do his skafia and sort of like get the evil away from the world, but they can't do his hapcha and turn the world into elokus. But Yosef can, because Yosef comes from Yesod. So he's beyond the source of the worlds, And therefore his ability to refine the worlds is such that he can just nullify the worlds out of being worlds and therefore transform them bichlal to good. So therefore we see how the union of Hiskafia is totally connected, which is Nissan, which is connected with it being from Malchus. Right? Because Malchus, right, they go together. If you're from Malchus, the highest level of avodas Hashem you can arrive at is Hiskafia. If you're from Yesod, which is the month of Iyar, that's why it's connected with the avoda of Hizhabcha, because if you're from the realm of Yesod, beyond the world, you have the power of transformation as well. You with me so far? Those are the first two introductions. The union of avodas Hashem and Spheros. Then he goes to the third introduction. Again, the introductions, Yoni's going to lose his chavrusa here if we don't quit it. But anyway, the third introduction, this is interesting. It's the union of Pesach Sheini. If you have a minute, it's worthwhile. Well, it's Pesach Sheini. Anyway, so the third introduction is the difference between Pesach Sheini and Pesach Rishon. In that Pesach Sheini, it's not just it means literally. It means if Pesach means a jump, Pesach Sheini means a second jump, right? Or like a second, a doubly powered jump. In other words, usually you think of Pesach Sheini as just a makeup for Pesach Rishon, which means it's like secondary and less than Pesach Rishon. But if you miss Pesach Rishon, at least you didn't lose your chance altogether. The Rebbe here says, no, the opposite. There's Pesach Rishon, there's a jump level 1. Then there's Pesach Sheini, a jump level 2. Like you can jump much, much higher. And what's the difference is, so first you have to understand what is a jump. What's the inyan of Pesach? So the idea of a jump is the level of a godly revelation that defies the Seder Ishtalshalus. It's something which from such a high place that it can't come into the world in a step-like orderly fashion, because basically, I guess for whatever reasons, for two reasons. One, why couldn't Hashem save the Jewish people in Mitzrayim with angels? It said, Ani v'lo malach, v'lo saraf, v'lo acher, right? Hashem had to come by himself. Why do you have to do that? So the Arizal says if the angels would have come in, we were so low that no matter what level of revelation, we would have like swallowed it up and like brought it down to our level. Right? It was not, the lower levels of these Shtalshlus couldn't sort of walk slowly in and save us from such a lowly place. And alternatively, if you're going to usually bring this level of godliness which is beyond the worlds, it could undo all the worlds, right? So it's like it doesn't work. But the whole idea of Pesach is that there was like this miracle of a jump. The infinite light sort of jumped over and found itself miraculously available in the lowest levels, right? So that's the idea of Pesach in general. It's this idea of Hashem jumps. So what's the difference between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheini? Is the inyan and place to which this jump is happening. Meaning, what's the inyan? So we said the inyan is either Hiskafia or Hizhabcha. What's the place? The place is either Malchus or Yesod. So in Pesach Rishon, the jump was a jump. In other words, like imagine it as like a kickstart or like a sort of a, like a, what do you do when you jumpstart a car? In the inyan of Hiskafia and into the sphere of Malchus, right? Because that's what's going on in Nissan. Which means, on a very practical level, you have a certain supernatural aid in your running from evil. In a Yid's life, basically, there's things that you need to get away from, right? There's things that you need to stop doing. There's addictions, there's bad behavior. And so in Nissan, the big miracle of Nissan is basically that you have a huge help from above. There's a Pesach, there's a jump. And where does it get injected to? Into your sur meira, into your turning from evil, into your hiskafi, into your negating the bad things in your life. And you have like a sort of a big chizuk in that. And therefore it follows that Pesach Sheini is a jump into the inyan of Yesod, which is the inyan of Hizhabcha. Right? So you have so Iyar, and what goes on, and specifically today, right, you get this sort of like injection into your ability to do good, and in your ability to transform things, and basically, and this whole level of avoda, right? So in other words, again, what does it mean practically? It's like it's a whole nother, can of worms over here. It's like you're now enthused and empowered to not just to get away from your bad stuff. The inyan of matzah, we're not going to eat bread. You're empowered to just like be your awesome real self, to like jump into the good things in life and like just transform yourself, Pasha. And so like just to finalize it, he says this then is how we can say a seeming contradiction between the pshat of Pesach Sheini, which is that it comes as like a makeup for Pesach Rishon. If you missed Pesach Rishon, right, then you can get to Pesach Sheini. Whereas what we're really saying now is that you start with the avod of Pesach Rishon, and then you climb up and you add the avod of Pesach Sheini. How does it work? In other words, they don't seem to go together, because according to the normal pshat, there was no Pesach Rishon. That's why you needed a Pesach Sheini to fill it in. According to what we're saying now, there was your first form of avoda was your Pesach Rishon. You got that, you did that, and then you have Pesach Sheini. If you really did Pesach Rishon al pi pashtus, you wouldn't even bring Pesach Sheini, right? Yeah. So how does it go together? You follow the question or no?
No, this time not.
Before this, you followed it, right?
Yeah, I followed everything.
Okay, so the point is, what is Pesach Sheini al pi halacha? If you missed Pesach Rishon, you forgot to bring your offering, or you were tameh, you were on the road, right? So you weren't able to bring your Pesach sacrifice with the rest of Am Yisrael. Mm-hmm. So then God gave this day that you could bring it a month later, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea is that really Pesach Sheini is only relevant if you don't have a Pesach Rishon, right?
Yeah.
But what we're saying,
Were they telling me because they're carrying Yosef?
No, because they were carrying. Well, that's one opinion. Because they were carrying Nadav and Aviv.
That'd be a cool connection.
Yeah. But anyway, what we're saying now, which is problematic towards that, is that Pesach Sheini is not in the place of Pesach Rishon. It's like an additional level that you gain after you gain the level of Pesach Rishon. In other words, you offered your Pesach offering, and now, in addition to that, you're going to offer your Pesach Sheini offering. That's not how it usually works, right? If you offered Pesach 1, you don't get to offer Pesach 2. So the idea is that when it comes to a Pesach, it's the idea of a jump, as we said before, of unlimitedness, right? You go to a place where like things which were beyond you, you had limits in. The Pesach gives you an unlimited, sort of breaks all boundaries, right? But the idea here is like this: Pesach Sheini is not merely a jump into a different area, like we've been saying, but it's also a second level jump. In other words, it's a jump of incomparable awesomeness compared to the jump number 1. So basically, the idea is like this: even if you missed, so to speak, Pesach Rishon, right? There's still an idea of replenishing it, right, with the Pesach Sheini, because it's such an unbelievable jump that even the things which basically Pesach Rishon was able to fix in you, right, which was basically taking you out of your limitations, even there was some measure of limitation that you still had, that the second level jump just defies all limitations and is able to basically fill in, as it were, and give you as though you have both levels. In other words, it's not like you replace. You only have Pesach Sheini, right? When you offer your Pesach Sheini, it gives you your Pesach Rishon also, because it fills in all limitations, even the limitations that you might have had from the original Pesach. And what does it mean practically? Is that when you're super enthused to do good, right, and you're just basically like a man on a mission, all of a sudden you've had that injection into the power of hapcha and transformation and like doing good. So automatically, basically, that gives you that fills in also your need to turn from evil. In other words, if you're so intensely doing good with like a supernatural leg up, then certainly it fills in your need to turn from evil as well. Mm-hmm. I'm saying it comes down. I know it's like kind of lofty, but on a very practical level now, it's just very intense advice and good news, basically, of what Pesach Sheini is. It's like you know how hard it is to basically stop doing things you're not supposed to be doing and like consistently like turn away from the evil in your life. Everybody has it, right? So on Pesach Rishon, it's like, oh, Baruch Hashem, I can really turn from evil. That's like nothing compared to what we get now. It's like if you're so running towards good, of course you're going to turn from evil. Like you don't even have a thought in your mind to do the evil, because when you're enthused to do good, the turning from evil basically comes automatically. So that's what this day is. It gives us like a...
So what's supposed to be done today then?
Eat matzah.
Shmor al matzah. No seder, nothing?
Shmor al matzah.
Don't say tachnun. What's that?
By Pesach, the Iskalos of Rukni, you're saying before the shot is AKA to being Lefnei Tzimtzum.
Say it again. I didn't hear you actually. The words.
The that's a scholars
In
being say Lefnei Tzimtzum.
Yes, but even before the Tzimtzum, it looks like there's two levels before the Tzimtzum, because the first Pesach also has limitations compared to the second Pesach. So even though we got like a jump on Pesach Rishon, it came from a place before the Tzimtzum which was still in some way connected to the worlds, so that the second jump is incomparable towards that, if you caught that part.
So the higher is out.
Even before the Tzimtzum itself, there's two levels it comes out. And the higher one comes up today.
So no chametz should be eaten today at all?
No, actually, you eat chametz and matzah on the table together. It's like that's the whole chiddush. It's like you're not. That's the point. What is chametz? Take care. Thanks. Your chametz is yourself, right? So in the beginning in Pesach, you have to run away from yourself. In here, you have the matzah with the chametz. You take yourself and you give it the matzah. In other words, you basically you don't have to run away from yourself because yourself is all good, you know. And not only that, but if whatever parts of yourself are not good, they're going to be dragged along. And automatically running from their problems because you're so fast running towards the good.
What's the last part?
I don't know, I just made that part up.
So it's just eating matzah. There's nothing else besides,
What's
It's not
that?
a seder, there's...
Yeah, you just mamish wash and eat matzah.
Did you make that up?
No.
Can you say it? Rabbi, I'm curious.
It's the same point I was making before. Like when you're busy running for good, you're also automatically running from evil. So when you're like into yourself, your chametz in a positive way, because the matzah is there, and it's not ugly chametz, it's like the healthy chametz. Then automatically the avoda of matzah is sitting on your. What is the avoda of matzah? Not letting yourself rise, not letting your bad parts come out. It's schlepped along with you basically. Like in a Pesach Sheini, you have both of them, because if you're already healthily taking care of your ego and like moving it like in a fast direction.
Soul.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is, which is exactly what we've been saying the whole time about Iyar, right? It's like getting your animal soul moving, and it schleps everybody.
Rabbi, how do the other dreams that Yosef had with the brothers? How does that also? Do they also fit into this?
Yeah, the other dreams was the stars bowed down,
Right.
and the sun and the moon were all bowing down to him.
Yeah.
So basically, that dream was first, actually.
Right.
So the Rebbe says in a Sikha, it's the same exact dream, but we find, in other words, it's the same exact thing. Like in other words, that they're bowing down to him means that they also required his. They were nullified. In other words, the whole natural order was basically nullified to him,
Okay.
right? But why is it the two dreams say the exact same thing?
Yeah.
Because this is like, okay, it's just a size thing, but it's a
Yeah.
Sikha. He says because in Kedusha, everything goes up. Whereas in Klip, everything goes down. So in Kedusha, it goes from the domem, the inanimate, which is the stars, and then the next dream is the growing level. Whereas in Paro's two dreams,
Nice.
he also had two dreams.
Cool.
His first dream was the Indian of the animals
Yeah.
were eating each other,
Right.
and the next dream was the stalks of grain were eating each other. So he went from the animal to
Went
the
down.
vegetable.
Went down.
Is the Indian of going down? It's the same thing. It's just like to show you the difference between Klippa and Kedusha.
Very cool. But how does Joseph's first dream show that they're uniting, that the sheaves are coming together? The
Right,
stars-
I guess the stars is the Indian of the 12 the constellations, right, which is the Indian of the 12 tribes, and that there really is a higher power that they're bowing down to, which is beyond the world.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Makes sense, right?
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a
Pesach Sheini, chevra. Eat your matzah.
I have.
Okay.
I think. I don't know.
Well, if you don't.
All right, so let's pass out.